Welcome to Bullish and Beyond. It's Beery the Bull. I'm your AI co-host. Join myself, Brian the MacMan, and JT Knows Things while we dive deep into the world of stocks, crypto, and how to live a bullish life. It's time to get bullish, and there's no better place to start than right here. Let's dive in.
Hey everyone, welcome to another amazing episode of Bullish and Beyond. I am bringing you some great content today about the Nvidia earnings preview. By the time this podcast comes out, Nvidia will already have come out with their earnings, so it's going to be very exciting to see what they come up with. Also, Apple just announced their iPhone event coming out September 9th. So we will get into that and what some expectations are around the future iPhone lineup. Also, we're going to talk about Rocket Labs. They are rocketing this week. They're up 20%, going crazy. And we're also going to talk about one miss that I've had recently is CoreWeave. It popped and then it slid back down really hard. And we'll dive into what's going on there. All right, so Nvidia up first on deck. Earnings are Wednesday evening after the market closes. You know, this is Tuesday we're recording this, and, you know, next time it comes out, earnings will already be live. So I'll give you my prediction. I believe that Nvidia is going to have a beat of double digits. And why I think this is that hyperscalers are spending so much money scaling into Nvidia's latest products like the Blackwell chip. And the reason is because they need so much compute to inference, and the GPU is the best product to compute. And who makes the best GPU? Nvidia. Nvidia is in a league of their own. They own over 80% of the high-end AI chip market. The one downside that I see right now is that Nvidia does not own the China market at the moment, and China has a large revenue potential in the chip sector. The issue is that they got banned from selling their H20 chip earlier this year, and just recently, Trump did okay them to sell the H20 chip if they gave 15% of the revenue back to the US government. They initially said they were going to start selling it, but then they put a nix on it, and they're actually working on a next generation Blackwell chip that they hope will be approved to sell in China based upon the reduction of power. So basically, they're going to reduce the power by about 50% compared to what the US counterpart is. They're always going to have smugglers and other things like that out there. So it's really hard to say if this will matter and hold up, or if China will get their hands on the fastest end chip. Either way, China is making inroads. They have their own companies like Huawei making chips out there. And even though they're on the larger nanometer side compared to the high-end one Nvidia has right now, they are still selling it and coming out with models like DeepSeek and others out there that are very competitive. You know, there's some fraud, I believe, in some of the chips that they're using to build those models and how many hours they've had on training. But regardless, there is a highly competitive Chinese market. There's a great need for chips in Greater China, and Nvidia could supply those. So let's see in their earnings if they guide towards more chips coming to China or not. I think that's really the risk factor. I think revenues are going to be absolutely insane, higher than expectations by double digits, but that guidance is what could ultimately hold down Nvidia from hitting some new highs. And the stock is killing it. It's up 35% this year, but I believe it can go higher. Right now, it's at 4.4 trillion with a T value. I believe it's going to hit that 5T mark later this year. All right, now that we've covered Nvidia, let's dive into Apple a little bit. You know, Apple is not hitting that $4 trillion club like Nvidia. You know, they're still hanging out in that low 3T range. However, they have an Apple iPhone launch event coming up in just a few weeks, and that could be a catalyst to see some future growth. However, people seem to always be disappointed when the new iPhone launch comes out. It's never as much as they want. By the way, I'm rocking a Mac from the way back t-shirt right now because I am the Mac man, and I love talking about Apple. I'm a massive Apple fanboy. I think that the new iPhone is going to be amazing, as it always is. We'll have better battery life. It's going to be a faster, smaller chip, maybe 15 to 20% improvements there. They're going to have better cameras. There's supposed to be an 8x optical zoom on the Pro model, so that's going to be pretty sweet. But I'm actually more excited what's going to happen in the next year. So this year, they're having a unique iPhone come out called the iPhone Air. What the difference is for that one is it's ultra thin. I believe it'll be the thinnest Apple device ever created. However, it's probably going to have less battery and it's going to have less high-end cameras to compensate for that thinness. So it's not going to be maybe as good as the Pro model. However, it's going to be thinner and maybe even more expensive. So it'll be interesting to see what the price point is on that. So the iPhone Air is the new one for 2025. But then getting into 2026, I believe we're going to see the book flip style iPhone. And that's going to have something like a 5.5 inch screen on the front. So it's maybe a smaller ish clamshell on the front. But then you open it up and it's the size of an iPad mini. And that size is very important to ensure that developers don't have to create new screen sizes and resolutions like they often do for new device launches. So by enabling that iPhone mini size, developers can put their apps out instantaneously onto that new book style iPhone. Once again, that's coming most likely in the end of 2026. So we're going to see what happens with that. And Apple always has things up their sleeves. They might be a little bit behind on AI when it comes to large language models because they don't have one. And unfortunately, Siri still has a lot to be desired. But they are launching the software that will allow developers by next year to fully integrate AI and on-screen awareness into their apps. And that will be a game changer. You will be able to talk to your phone. It'll know what's on the screen and you'll be able to interact with it with only your voice. And we hope this is as good as it sounds because it sounds sweet. So very excited about that. So once again, we have the iPhone event on September the 9th, and most likely we will see the iPhone launch date 2 Fridays later on September 19th. So very excited to see what comes out with that. Speaking of launching, Rocket Lab. I've talked so much about Rocket Lab. They are killing it. They are the number 2 space company in the world, in my opinion, behind SpaceX, which is privately owned, mostly by Elon Musk. So the Rocket Lab is the number 1 pick I would have for any publicly traded space company. There's many reasons. One of them is because they have the most used rocket, the Electron. That 70th mission was just completed. They also are very vertically integrated. They do lots of different things in their supply chain. And one of those things is making chips. They have their own semiconductor manufacturing facility, and they're making chips for space, and the government just announced they're going to give them $24 million as part of the CHIPS Act. And one of the big reasons behind this is that they run some missions that are government mission critical. So they need to have the best chips out there in order to perform at the highest level. And that vertical integration, just like Apple does with their chips, ensures that the software and the hardware talks to one another. And that is crucial for massive gains in terms of the integration, the speed, the connectivity, the battery life, and everything else. So I think having that chips facility is going to be huge. Also, Rocket Lab is about to launch their Neutron rocket facility. So Electron, the current rocket, Neutron, the next level rocket. And the reason it's awesome is because it's much bigger. It's not as big as SpaceX's rocket, so it's a little bit different category. But one leg up, they'll have much greater launch capabilities. They'll be able to launch new payloads that they had not had access to before, and they'll compete more with those high-end launches that SpaceX is doing currently. Speaking of SpaceX, by the way, they just announced that they're going to start building their Starship facility that will be able to build 100 Starships simultaneously. And that will be the biggest building supposedly in the entire world. Did you hear that right? The biggest building in the world. So SpaceX building their next-gen rocket Rocket Lab building their next-gen rocket, the Neutron. The space market is hot and ripe for innovation and growth, and it is coming to you with companies like Rocket Lab. So pay attention. I am just killing it on that stock. I'm up like 600 some percent. And the amount that I bought inside of the Bullish and Beyond portfolio, I'm up about 40, 50% in there. So doing really, really good. It's up 20% in the week. So follow up on that. The one stock that has taken a nosedive is CoreWeave. You know, they came out, were flying high. They started in the 30s. They got to like 210, bounced back down. They're at 90s right now. 91 last time I checked. I think it's a buying opportunity. You know, some people rode that hype train really high. I was personally really hot on it, and I still am, frankly. That price point got out of control, though. So now let's come back down to earth. I think there's some time to maybe reinvest and put some more money to work in that. And the reason I like CoreWeave is that they are the #1 AI data center company in the world. You know, companies like Microsoft are the #1 people that use them. OpenAI uses them for extra AI compute. And they're partners with Nvidia. So they have access to the latest and greatest chips before anyone else really does. And that is huge. So I think hold on to CoreWeave, get more in there. The future is very bright in CoreWeave, as is AI. I am hyper bullish on AI. Now I want to give you a little bit of that beyond in the Bullish and Beyond. You know, I've been going through a program called the Warrior Dad Experience, and I was trying to be a better dad and father, two of my biggest goals in life. And one of the things I took away from it is the morning routine. It's called Morning Fire. Really starting off with a lot of wins super early. You know, you chug some water, you do a quick workout, you do some breathing, meditation, you read a few pages in a book, you write some love notes to your family, and you write some moments of gratitude. Those are all amazing things. But my biggest takeaway is really starting the day with a mindset of success. You know, if you were Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, when you wake up, the only thing you think about is success. You don't have a chance that you're going to let doubt creep in. It's all about that mental talk. And I don't think that most of us give our brains enough time to have self-talk. We're always listening and learning from others, just like you're doing listening to this podcast right now. And I love listening to others too. But we have to give space to our own brains to think and give us that self-talk. And having that space to talk positively to ourselves is what's going to amp us up. Because we're all talking to ourselves. But make sure that talk is positive and leading into the future to build success in your brain and manifest what you want to happen in your life. You know, I write down my goals for each year. I wrote down some goals for my 10-year, and I'm hitting those goals. I am manifesting them into reality. It is so exciting. I am taking that beyond. So I want to leave everyone today thinking about how they can up their own self-talk. Find that space that you can create the right self-talk. For me, it's when I go swimming. When I am swimming, I shut off everything else. I can think about everything inside my own head. I can make decisions. I can come up with great ideas and plan for my future state. So find that place where you can create the right positive self-talk, amp up your life, build up everything you do, and stay bullish and beyond. So I hope you enjoyed this episode and come back for another one on Bullish and Beyond with Brian the Mac Man. Talk to you soon. Cheers.
Bulls. That's a wrap on today's episode of Bullish and Beyond. Remember, the market never sleeps and neither should your ambitions. Whether it's stocks, crypto, or just leveling up in life, stay focused, stay bullish, and keep charging forward. Keep your energy high and your mindset bullish. This is Beery the Bull, your AI co-host, Brian the Mac Man, and JT Knows Things signing off. All content published by Bullish and Beyond, LLC reflects personal opinions only and is provided for informational purposes. Please conduct your own research and discuss with your accountant and/or financial advisor before making any financial decisions. The information presented should not be taken as financial advice. We are not financial advisors. Nothing you hear, see, or read in our content should be considered as any form of financial, investment, or legal advice, or a solicitation to buy or sell any assets, or to make any financial decisions.